welcome to our Celebrate Waukesha breakfast. Thank you for donating to the food pantry. I think we had a wonderful weekend for the city of Waukesha with our remembrance ceremony, the night of lights, the tree lighting, and then our parade. And I know many of you, if you weren't there, you were watching it. I think for the community it was extremely needed and very, very special. So I just want to say a lot of work went into it. And this isn't just the city. I'm gonna point out the police. They did a lot of work. The chamber did a lot of work. Many other organizations made this happen and made it special. There's no way to name them all, but I'm going to say thank you to all those people that made that happen. What we're going to do right now is, as you know, I'm looking for one of the parade brochures. All right. Well, I got a little postcard. I didn't think this through too well. So we do have larger forms of this, and actually there are some out on the table. If you're able to put one of these up and poster in your business, I'd ask you to do that so that it has a QR code. People can just donate directly from that. We want to make sure that everyone knows about the Parade Memorial Fund, and we're working to have raise funds for that, which we are now going to go to 2 check presentations for the Parade Memorial Fund. We have Jedderack and Myers, who are both here for check presentations, and I got to find Rebecca. I got to look at it. Nope, you don't need to get up. I'm just saying, I already messed this up because I didn't do the introductions. Yeah. I thought she'd be back there. I was like, oh. So, before I go to the check presentations, we have some elected officials attending this morning. We have, from the office of Congressman Fitzgerald, Michael Hartman, who's right over here. We have our Waukesha County Supervisors, Paul Decker, Mike Crawley, and Daryl Enriquez. And Daryl had a hotline. Yeah. We have City Council members, Alicia Halden Slavin, Steve Johnson, Dean Webke, Rick Lemke, Elizabeth Molson, Mike Payne, and Joe Piper. They're all here. Now that I got back on track, we'll go to the check presentations. From Jedderack, we have Kelly Skinjaleski. They wrote it phonetically for me because otherwise I really mispronounce it. So Kelly, can you come up here and I'm going to give you the mic too.
All right, sounds good. Good morning, everyone. On behalf of everyone at Jedderack, we are really honored today to support the Permanent Memorial Fund with a check for $15,000.
There we go.
We're honored to really help the community heal and remember. Thank you and happy holidays. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And you know, our community is so special by everyone working together to try to address and help people heal. This is one part of it, but there's been so many other individuals and companies that have stepped up. So Data, I'm going to ask you to step up for Meyer. And Julie, are you coming up too? No, you're taking the picture, aren't you? So, all right. And I've been told that I have to unwrap the check.
Good morning, everybody. On behalf of all the employees at your Waukesha Meijer, we'd like to present this gift for the Memorial Fund.
Did you wrap it?
No. Of course, you have Rebecca. I have Julie.
There you go. I was going to say it's wrapped beautifully. It was not wrapped like me, for sure. Usually the corners are big balls on the end when I wrap something.
That's why at my house, my kids, my wife, I'll give back. We're making them work for it this morning.
I should rip this whole roll of tape. Yeah, well, I'm ripping it.
All right, Mayor, it's on Phil.
All right, so Dana, here we got $5,000 for this. All right, this one also will not fit in my pocket. All right, so I also want to thank everyone else who's donated to the fund, including Citizens Bank, Century Fence, and over 256 others and growing. Yesterday, for the Waukesha County Community Fund, Melissa indicated that there's 31 individuals from 31 states have donated. So, that's just, it makes me feel great. I want to also thank Tuscan Hall, Amy Bartloff, and Amanda Roddy also, but Tuscan Hall always does a great job, and we love being here. We want to thank Helping Hands Senior Group and the Park Recreation and Forestry Department for the centerpieces. So this is a group of people who will put these together for us, and for them, it gives them something to do. We pay for the supplies, but they make them beautiful. Thank you for your donations for the food pantry and the Parade Memorial Fund. And there, my notes are over, and now I'm off script. And Kevin just put his head down. So where do I go? Actually, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin later, City Administrator, for the city news and announcements, and then we'll get into our program. Kevin?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to make this very brief about the city news and announcements. First of all, I just want to echo what the mayor said. We had about a week and a half of some tremendous community events this last week and a half, and just amazing to see the community come together. We did Light Up the Night. The road was so packed that when people started singing, you couldn't hear us back because there were so many people who continued to come up the road. And that was just a great event. Thank you for the partnership with the Chamber and the Downtown Business Association on that. If you have not been downtown, our downtown, as the kids say, is lit, literally. So both in terms of the amount of activity going on down there, but also the lights that we put up over the bridges and around the different areas along the river. So get down there. It's a great selfie spot, so bring the kids down, get your Christmas card made if you haven't done that already. But yeah, it's a great spot to go. And then when you're down there, visit some of our amazing downtown businesses. And the mayor's reminding me to thank the sponsors for making that happen. Waterstone Bank is our presenting sponsor. Educators Credit Union was another big sponsor. There's several sponsors that are down there. So just please go down there and take a look at what's going on. It's great, great event. And then also the parade. So it was an incredible parade. Some of the best floats that we've ever seen. I'm just really proud of our group. If you see a police officer or firefighters, thank them. There was an incredible amount of activity that was part of that parade, making it a safe event. And as from a city standpoint, we're all collectively breathing a sigh of relief while we celebrate the holidays. So just really appreciate everything that they've done to make those things happen. People in our park rec, everybody that's been a part, our public works staff who came out and was doing all sorts of stuff. We actually had to, funny story, check the gas before you get to it. So we have an old antique fire engine, and I was in the command post, and all of a sudden an antique fire engine on the side of the road. And we're all like, oh no, it broke down. We send out our mechanic, our lead mechanic from the city garage out there. Turns out it ran out again. So, lesson for the fire chief. I don't know who was in charge of that. And DeVeris, I don't know.
I have nothing to say.
So again, and then as we look forward to next year, we just keep celebrating in Waukesha. Why not? We have Jamboree coming up, so tremendous amount of events, partnership with the city and the county, all the way around the city of Waukesha and the county of Waukesha. We're going to have a great number of events, a fireworks display, all sorts of stuff. So check out our website for that. That's coming up fast and furious right after the holidays. So last but not least, happy holidays to everyone. Hope everybody enjoys themselves, and thank you all for coming. We'll get into our presentation.
All right. Before Kevin starts, I should have said, look at the pictures of the memorial. It is absolutely gorgeous, and I've said this many times, but this is something decades from now will speak to our community. There'll be people who were injured in the parade or saw them or witness to it, and they will be going to that memorial for years and years. Grandchildren. This is something that speaks to us through the generations, and so we're going to do it right. All right, Kevin, go ahead.
All right, so the way we're going to do this presentation is I'm going to give some information. So I'm going to be the straight man. I'm going to be Pat Cimarron, and the mayor's going to be John Nett. You're not. Makes me a little nervous, but we're going to get through it.
I'm caller, and I'm really comfortable.
So just real briefly, I just wanted to talk about some fast facts about City of Waukesha, some things that you might not know, and that just to kind of establish a baseline for the city. We're going to talk about the budget. We're going to talk about a few other things that impact us on a regular basis. But City of Waukesha is 25 square miles. We're the largest city in Waukesha County with about 73,000 people. One thing that you might not know is our median age is 36, which is actually the lowest in Waukesha County. So we're actually a relatively young community relative to the other communities around us. Our poverty rate is about 11%, and our median household income is $65,000, which is below the rest of Waukesha County, you might imagine, but above the average for the state of Wisconsin. We have 30,500 and change housing units. Of those, we have 55.9% that are owner occupied. Our median home value is $212,700. We have about 12,329 rental units, and our monthly rent is roughly $944. We have roughly 3.8% of vacant housing units, and that's vacant for a variety of reasons. But as anybody knows, we have an incredibly hot real estate market for many months, and it's starting to cool down. It's still a commodity to find a house in Waukesha. I put up some information there about other cities in the county. So as compared to the other cities in the county, our median monthly rent is somewhat lower, but it's higher than the state of Wisconsin on average. And one of the things that we focus on this year and in the coming years, and you're going to hear it from myself and the mayor, other folks associated with the city, we really got to focus on affordable housing. It's a nationwide issue. It's an issue here in Waukesha County and in the city of Waukesha as well. So we're going to continue to try to put efforts into creating more affordable housing units so that more folks can afford to live in this great city.
In Waukesha and in Waukesha County. We'll be pushing other communities.
Just in terms of our taxable value, we're just under $4.5 billion in residential, just under $2 billion in commercial, and about $260 million in industrial property, manufacturing property. Our manufacturing base sounds like a small number in terms of property value. There's a lot of exemptions for manufacturing properties and it relates to the state of Wisconsin. Incredibly strong employment base here in the city with our manufacturing area. very proud of that. The mayor and I are both guests at INEO recently, and so what you might have heard a while back is that actually INEO announced the closure of the manufacturing area and moved their production up to Canada. Well, as it turns out, they did close for a very short period of time. They have since reopened and are now remanufacturing engines here in the city of Waukesha, expanding their remanufacturing here in the city. They continue to have their corporate headquarters here for the U.S. as well as their engineering center of excellence here. So that's a really good story for us. Continuing a business that we thought was going to close down is actually coming back much stronger than it was before. So we're really excited about that. You also may have noticed recently that GE Medical just announced they're spinning off GE, keeping their Waukesha headquarters here in the city of Waukesha. We're very proud of that. We're very glad. It's a great place to do business.
One thing with the total taxable property values, we're going to have a revalue occur in 2023. So you'll see the total taxable property value will increase quite significantly because of the values of real estate have really shot up. And we haven't gone through a reval for a number of years. So there will be that number for 2023 or whatever much higher. That doesn't mean taxes go up. It means they get distributed, used as vaccine. It means the tax rate will go down. That would be a whole nother topic to discuss. Assess values.
We're not going to let the mayor discuss that. Sorry. So this is how we're organized.
Hey, I'm used to it. I'm not listening to them.
So this is how we're organized. This is a typical organization for a city of our size. Police chief and fire chief report to the mayor, city attorney, municipal judge are elected officials. The mayor appoints all the boards and commissions approved by the city council. And then the board and commissions, we have separate governance for our water utility and our library. The library is directed by state law. The city's water utility is a local ordinance. And then we have all the rest of the departments that formally the city. Want to talk a little, I'm going to nerd out a little bit. I'm sorry for that in advance. But I want to talk
You're saying that now?
about state revenue. So, state revenue, I'm just going to give you a brief primer on this and talk about why it's important, it should be important to you, why it's important to cities as we move forward. So, fun fact, the state of Wisconsin was the first state to establish an income tax. Yay, good for us. Number one. 1911. So it was a result of some new property tax exemptions that came down from the federal government. So they established a income tax, and the part of that income tax was designed to go back to our local communities to make them whole in these properties.
90% of it.
Yes, 90% of it. 90% of your income tax was supposed to come back to local communities. And it did back in 1911. In 1970, they realized that essentially the rich were getting richer and the lower income cities were not getting enough money. So they established an equalization formula where communities that needed it more were getting more funds, communities that needed less were getting less funds. And that continued up until about 2002 or so. At that time, the state legislature just ended all the formulas and they said, this is what you're going to get. And since that time, the amount of shared revenue has stayed flat. And so as state income and your income taxes have gone up, and as you know, right now the state has about a $6.5 billion surplus that is not being distributed in any significant way. The amount of funds that local communities got has stayed flat. And there are some things that we've done differently. Go ahead.
Just real quick, state income taxes haven't gone up. The economy has just done so much better that there's more revenue coming in. The tax rate has actually been reduced, but they're still the state is bringing in more money.
So we get two forms of direct payment from the state. We get what's known as shared revenue, which is about 1.4 million, and then we get expenditure restraint payment, which is about a little over 2 million. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how that is created.
And that's less than 5% of our budget.
So we get 3.6 million in direct aid from the state. This is the history of shared revenue since 2013. This is the data we had going back. So as you can see, the blue line is total shared revenue that has remained essentially unchanged. And so it's 1.5 million, and it stayed roughly 1.5 million all the way through 2022. So 2013 to 2022, state trade revenue has not changed. And this is just not, it's not just Waukesha, it's every local community. Every city in the state of Wisconsin is receiving essentially the same exact trade revenue payment from the state.
Cities, towns, and villages.
And counties. And counties.
And counties, yeah.
And the expenditure restraint payment has gone up slightly, so from 2013 to 2022, it's gone up from 1.9 million to 2.2 million, which, as you might imagine, is way less than the rate of inflation or any other measure that could possibly be met. So,
You want me to add some color?
no, you can't.
I'm gonna save my color for later on. This could get me a little hot.
All right. So levy limits. So then we operate in the state under levy limits. Cities, towns, counties are under a state mandated levy limit. And so what that basically says is that municipalities and counties cannot increase their local property tax levy except for debt service. So if we issue debt to build a road, build a building, that sort of thing, that's exempt from the cap. But by more than the amount of net new construction in the community, and I'll talk to you about that in a minute. And then they also have excluded adding any sort of fees for covered services. And those are snow plowing, refuse collection, stormwater management, fire protection, and street sweeping. So if we add a fee for those services, we have to reduce our levy by equal amount. So it really is a deterrent to adding fees to those sorts of services. We can add 50% of a closed tip to allow for some levy growth. And the net new construction is the amount of new construction minus the amount of buildings that have been torn down or demolished since that time.
So, real quick, greenfield development, you're really gonna get about 95% net new construction increase. Redevelopment, a lot of times you're lucky to get 60% or so, just because you have to subtract the value of the building that existed before. A lot of greenfield development in your villages and towns happens on agricultural land, which a lot of times has an assessed value of less than $5,000. So you can understand that the net new construction for greenfield development is huge. The net new construction for something that's being torn down and being rebuilt is a lot less.
And then other thing to know is that does not include appreciation, property value increases, that doesn't count. And then this can be exceeded by voter referendum. And this is a thing that's happening across the state right now. There's been over a dozen referendums throughout the state to exceed the levy cap. Most of them to fund public safety, from cities as big as Eau Claire to as small as Slinger have done referendums this year. And actually, most of them have passed because the voters want to actually fund for public safety. Thank you very much.
There was more than 250 referendum this year. Hope I'm not saying something that is different than what's on Kevin's slide.
The other cap that we're under is expenditure restraint. So if we don't raise our expenditures too much, then we get an additional payment from the state for $2.2 million. That means that your general fund budget can't increase minus your debt service less than inflation, which is measured by a local CPI, so local consumer price index, plus 60% of your net new construction. So plus 60% of that number. So it's inflation plus net new construction. Now, if you think about net new construction, you wonder why that's such a cap. So the blue line on this slide is 1%. Okay? So the growth rate in net new construction in the city of Waukesha has ranged from a low of 0.5% to a high in 2017. We were throwing parties for 1.4% net new construction. Okay? And that is a situation unique to cities like Waukesha because we are an established city that has been that is essentially largely built out, and we also have with essentially locked borders. We can't add additional property around us. Okay? And so older cities with slower growth rate, where the new development is actually a lot of redevelopment, have a much lower net new construction in fast growth cities. You go out to a place like Oconomowoc can grow at a 3, 4, or 5% rate. They have much more land they can annex in, how these are being built there. They have the ability to raise that much quickly than a city like Waukesha. So that is something that's unique to these, to kind of your county seat. If you think about Waukesha, Janesville, Oshkosh, Eau Claire, those are communities where the growth rates can be much, much slower. And as a result, our ability to grow, our budgets, and these are the biggest cities in Wisconsin, have a much harder time growing their, paying for what they need to pay for, which is essentially, I'll show you in a minute, a lot of public safety, services that everybody needs.
I'm going to jump in real quick here, which is right now the state budget process is basically begun. All the departments are submitting their budgets to the governor's office for the next biennium budget. One of the bigger expenses is, I think it's number 7 in the budget classifications, is cities, towns, municipalities, and counties, which is shared revenue. And there is no entity that's putting together the budget for that. That's just basically the governor's office does it on its own. And then this legislature pretty much will maybe look at it, and then they do it on their own. But there's no budget for shared revenue being put out and during the entire budget cycle. We're left out, which is always happened. I mean, I guess I'm not complaining about it, but just I'm pointing it out because it's kind of interesting that the 7th largest expenditure for the state, there's no one submitting a budget or any information on it. Go ahead.
That's great. Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah.
I really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
happy to be here.
So just what this means for the city of Waukesha really quickly is our operating levy limit for 2023 is 1.8%. So that means that our tax levy can increase for operating purposes for 1.8%. This is a very unique year. Our expenditure restraint number was 8.3%. Why? Because inflation was through the roof, right? You all pay for gas, you all pay for groceries, you know what's going on. And so that expenditure restraint number was 8.3%. So under this current formula, our 1% increase is $70 million in new value. So think about that. So to generate 1%, which equals $550,000 on a $75 million budget, we have to create at least 2 of the Mandel projects that are down on St. Paul every year, plus a little extra, in order to continue that and get up to 1%, which is for us $550,000 on a $75 million budget. And think about that percentages we do that, but it's not a tremendous amount. So under the current expenditure restraint formula, we could actually spend 8.345% more, but we can only increase our levy by $555,000. And if you do the math, that's a $5.5 million gap. And if you think about it, we buy lots of stuff that costs a lot of money. We have a police department and a fire department that run 365, 24/7, and they consume fuel. Fuel, obviously, prices went up. We have certain chemicals within our wastewater treatment plant that tripled in cost in the last year. Tripled in cost. We obviously have healthcare costs that have gone up. We have other things. We have employees that, in this environment, would like to get a little bit more money, considering the rate of inflation and the CPI that everybody is struggling with. And so this is the unique challenge in Wisconsin and in the city of Waukesha that we operate under on an annualized basis. And the reason why I'm telling you all this now is because this system is broken. It needs to be fixed. And I'm just going to get on my soapbox a little bit and let the mayor talk a little bit about that, because it's something that the mayor and I work on consistently year after year with our state legislature.
So it is a statewide problem. There's no question. I meet with the mayors of New Berlin, Muskego, and Brookfield pretty much weekly. We do it Zoom. We meet on Fridays for Zoom. And I'm going to tell you that Brookfield, Muskego, and New Berlin, as well as Waukesha, all talk about this. This is not, those are 4 communities that you would think are doing very, very well financially. We know the system's broken. It is broken. In Waukesha County, the ones that I think that are having probably the most difficult time are the ones that had historically volunteer fire departments, where people were paid on call or they weren't even paid at all. Those are a lot of the towns to the west of here. The levy limits, what it does is you can't hire firefighters, and they were volunteers. So the system is just saying you can't even have firefighters. They don't have volunteers, so they're in this catch-22 of how do they even have a fire department without having any people running it, because they can't pay for it. Now, they keep every single year they keep working to make it work, but we're heading down a treacherous, road here. And then the other thing, I meet with elected officials from throughout the state many times. Northern Wisconsin and the parts of western Wisconsin that aren't having the growth along the Mississippi River are in a position where their net new growth in the last 15 years is nothing. And they are, where they used to have 15 employees, and these are really small communities, they now have 9, and they're telling me they need to go to 6 for next year and things like that. That's an economic development issue for the state of Wisconsin. If your communities basically fall apart, you are economically, people won't move there, people won't live there, they'll move out there, they'll move to a different state if they need to. So for me, this is something that is a statewide economic issue that needs to be fixed. And really what it needs is there needs to be an ability, I can tell you right now, it doesn't even need to have your taxes raised. It needs a redistribution of money coming from the state to the municipalities. The money that the state used to provide to municipalities is much less than it used to be in real dollars. And the other thing, the double whammy is that then the state says, but you can't raise any more revenue on your own, which is property taxes. And municipalities depend upon property taxes anywhere from 60 to 85% of their total revenue. But you can't raise them unless you have what we were talking about, the net new growth. There, I'm off my soapbox.
That's great. That was even better than Sean Mann.
I didn't wave my arms.
So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the city budget. There is some relative good news here. So just in terms of, this is our rainy day fund. And so over the last few years, we've been able to grow our rainy day fund through very strong budget controls and budget practices. And this is essentially, we're keeping our expenditures below our budgeted amount, and we're growing that rainy day fund. The industry recommendation of 25%, we're at about 30 right now, but it took us a while to get there. And that is actually good news for the city. That is going to be hard to maintain under these current environments. We are 1 to 2 years away from having to have some sort of new revenue or drastic increase in expenditures in order to continue that trend. But we do have a lot of strength in the city. One of the things that you folks, I'm sure, are well aware is that we have a very low crime rate. We are a very safe and secure community. And people, we have a high value of that within the city. We fund that very well. We obviously have a vibrant business community. As I mentioned before, downtown is lit. We are an employment center for the region. We have rural healthcare. We have a variety of industries that are here. We have accounting facilities. We have a lot of employment here in the city of Waukesha. We recently won a gold medal for our recreational programming for the second time, the national award, which is very high praise for our park and recreation. If you haven't been to the library lately, go take a look. It's great. We just did an update to our library. We've got demonstration kitchens in there. We got lots of cool stuff. And we have an incredible amount of circulation that goes through our library. As I mentioned before, we are in a strong financial position right now, and we have a very highly qualified, experienced workforce. The reason that the city is so successful is that we've been able to attract and retain a tremendous amount of talent, some of which is in this room, to help us run the city in a very strong way. Our challenges, as I mentioned, is our locked borders. I mentioned affordable housing. I nerded out on shared revenue levy limits. I'm sorry.
That wonky.
Inflation is a big issue for us. If you think about the stuff that the city needs to operate, We buy lots of energy, that's going up 11%. We buy lots of fuel. We obviously have to invest in our employees. We have salt for our roads, like all those sorts of things that you think about. All those things are impacted by inflation, and those things are things that pose a very big challenge for the budget. We are completing our Lake Michigan water project, which is very exciting for us, bringing water into Lake Michigan. And one of the biggest challenges for us in this year, as it is probably all of your industries that are here today, is attracting routine talent, keeping people growing and competing other places.
One other thing is interest rates too. That's the cost of borrowing money, as you all know, has risen significantly. And we borrowed our money for our big projects during what is probably the best interest rate time during my lifetime. I know it's the best interest rate time. But if you're having to borrow money in the coming years as a municipality, it's going to hurt bad. Yes, that's colorful.
Yeah. So just from our capital budget, our total capital budget in our tax supported fund is $28.9 million, and our enterprise fund is $22.3 million. What we're doing next year, we're doing a Delafield Street reconstruction for $3.8 million. We have our Minor Street reconstruction for $2.7 million, and we have a street resurfacing program for $2 million. We have a whole process where we go and we rate roads and we look at what they're doing, and then we establish a 5-year and 10-year plan for reconstruction and that sort of thing. We're implementing those sort of things within our capital improvement plan. We have a training center improvements for the fire department for $1.1 million, and a fire engine replacement for $900,000. Every time I see a fire engine replacement, I get a little shaky. They're extremely expensive vehicles, but they are
Just
very important.
really hitting on fire.
I know. Just got to make sure they're fueled up. So we have a replacement program for our March squads. One of our biggest projects in the area of IT and public safety is our replacement of our computer-aided dispatch system. So that's a huge project for us. We're going to be upgrading that system this year, and that's going to cost $3 million. We have playground equipment that's being replaced. We have a replacement program for that throughout the community. And then we have our sanitary sewer rehab program and our pump station consolidation. So one of the things that we've been doing over the course of several years is consolidating down and removing pump stations from the stations that pump wastewater like over a hill or that sort of thing. And those things are very important if we can get those removed because they cost money to operate.
Gravity is cheaper than electricity.
Yeah, and gravity is much cheaper than electricity. We don't want to have those things are points of failure. If we can get rid of many of those that we possibly can, you're creating a gravity flow system much better, easier to maintain, much less costly for the long term, much less risk of failure. So that's a program we'll be continuing for several years, and then we have a transit system for replacing buses. In the operating budget, we actually started this in midsummer. We just ended it not that long ago. I mean, Merry Christmas to us. But we asked each of the departments for their requests each year. We go over all of their different processes. We go through several different finance committee reviews and also the city council. And they project their costs and their revenues throughout the year. Just so that you're aware, this is kind of our big overview, and then I'll shut up. We have $77.5 million budget. Half of that is public safety. That's very typical for cities in Wisconsin. It's going to be around, 40 to 70% of the city's budget every year. Public safety is police, fire, and building inspections is actually included in that number as well. So it's roughly 50% of our total budget. We have about 13% in both public works and park rec and forestry, and then the rest of the supporting cast is there as well. And so our cultural expenditures includes our contribution to the library. The library is funded by both the city and the county, and some other revenues as well. But that is our general budget for our expenditures. And then in terms of revenue, obviously our biggest form of revenue is taxes. That's one reason why we think it's very important to people understand about the levy cap. And then the rest of our intergovernmental revenues is the state funds, but also federal revenues and other things like that come in. So that we have 52 million roughly in taxes, and then 11 million in intergovernmental revenue, which is our shared revenue and then other grant programs and some federal funds that come in there as well. And then the rest of the piece of the pie are much smaller. That's your licenses and permits for doing some electrical work on your house and that sort of thing. And last but not least, we have a debt service fund. And so we have 10-year debt, 15-year debt, 20-year debt that we have funded. One of the things about Waukesha is that we issue very short-term debt as compared to other communities. Lots of folks will issue 20-year debt. We mostly issue 10 and 15-year debt. Very rarely do we issue 20-year debt. And so what that means is that over time we pay less. We have an interest, and that debt drops off much more quickly. And so that's a benefit for us to keep us financially strong as well. And that is a conclusion of my comments.
Well, and I think we're hoping that we'll have questions that we can kind of go back and forth. But one final thought I have is, in the last 30 years, state tax revenues have tripled, but the share from the state taxes to support police, fire, EMS, and other local services in real dollars has gone down. It's less than they were providing to municipalities 30 years ago, while the state has is tripled the amount of money in revenue that comes into it. That's why this is our topic, because it's not just me, not just Kevin, but pretty much all the municipal leaders. And I encourage you to talk to, if you have in your community, if you're not in Waukesha, talk to your local elected officials and ask them if they think the financial system for financing municipalities is broken. And I'm going to guarantee you that they're going to say, yes, it is. It's not sustainable the way it's set up, and something needs to happen. So, questions or comments or criticisms? No one likes to hear, that the system's broken and property. Everyone believes that property taxes are too high, and me also. But property taxes are the way municipalities are funded. We're an outlier among the other 50 states where we depend upon property taxes so much to fund police and fire. In many other states, police and fire is funded 2/3 by the state itself, not by the municipality. Ed? He had a thing.
So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Ed Hedgerow. I actually used to be the city administrator before Kevin. I've spent 30 plus years in city management. I've done over 20 years of consulting work. I've consulted with approximately 100 cities, villages, and towns in Wisconsin and elsewhere. And I would reinforce what they said. This is a statewide problem. It absolutely is. The system is absolutely broken. One of the things they did not touch on is the fact that, and I've lived through all this, I had 50 years of this in local government. There's also used to be coming into local government something called federal shared revenues. That's totally gone. We don't get any federal shared revenue anymore. And so they're, by the way, thank you for the uplifting program during the holidays.
And you'll be getting your tax bill soon.
So, of all the communities I worked with statewide, and they range from little Croninware up north to city Milwaukee and everything in between, I will tell you the system is broken. And part of it has to do with the fact that local officials let it break years and years and years ago. I was at a conference where they started to go down this path of levy limits, and I spoke against it in a room full of elected officials, and they said, wait a minute, this is okay because now we can blame the state. It is not okay. The state is not better at providing services to you on a daily basis than Kevin and the mayor are. If you know any state legislators, if you know the governor, if you know the state officials, talk to them and tell them the system is absolutely broken and we're going to go broke. Nobody likes to raise taxes, I get it. But if you have a heart attack at your house and you want the ambulance to show up and they're not staffed properly, you'd be glad to pay those taxes. I've said my piece.
All right. Thank you, Ed. And I guess I'm just gonna add that, I actually think this can be done without raising taxes. The state has, this isn't using their surplus, it's reallocating how the money that they have is paid out to different entities in the future. If the state can keep on having a surplus like this, they could easily provide additional shared revenue to municipalities. And remember, the shared revenue has stayed flat or has gone down. If they would have kept up with inflation with shared revenue, you would have a Christmas program, not a doom and gloom program. So, anyone? Go ahead, Daryl.
Hi, could you please comment on the staffing levels of public safety departments?
Well, statewide, the number of police has gone down. And that is a factor of financing for municipalities. It isn't let's defund the police. Every mayor, every elected official I know, that's a really, really tough decision to not have as many police officers. But statewide, the number of police officers is down from what it used to be. A big part of that is your police and fire is over 50% of your budget. When you need to reduce your budget, you don't just take it from parks and library because you will devastate them. You try to spread it out, between all the different departments, and you try to make the impact on the community as less as you can. And I think the elephant in the room here is we know that Milwaukee next year is looking at, I don't know what they're going to do, to be honest with you. They're going to probably have a lot less police officers, a lot less firefighters next year.
What about Waukesha?
Yes, so, we have been able to maintain our police and fire well, and we've increased it slightly, but it's nowhere near the needs which is required to meet what it would need. So one of the big emerging things that we're trying to do is expand, behavioral health services and things like that. It's something that we should be funding, that we should be doing for interventions, early interventions, get people out of the police system and all that sort of stuff. Those are bigger and growing needs. We have, every year, guys in the room that we have intense discussions about their need for additional supervision. One of the things that's reality in Waukesha is we're becoming a very young department. And so the need for additional supervision is there, and they're begging me for more sergeants and lieutenants, and I'm in a position to say no. Our staffing levels, our minimum staffing hasn't changed in Waukesha in many years for the fire department. We did actually add half of a year of 3 firefighters this year for the first time in decades, I think.
And they've been asking for
Yeah,
that for
for years.
8 years at least.
Yeah, and the result of it is there's only so much of a pie, and so some of the other departments suffer as a result of that. But in our community, public safety is probably the number one priority, and so we're trying to make sure that we fund that.
Paul, maybe.
You may want to touch on what we're working on together, and then the embedded social worker, working with the police department, but we ran the program with the sheriff's department, it's been very successful. Now we're expanding and the city participating.
Yeah, and so this is one of the things, and I thank you for the question, Paul, because one of the criticisms that folks say is that you look at government, you're like, oh, you're spending too much, you should run more as a business, right? And so what do businesses do when the economy goes south? Well, they cut employees. As far as I know, we haven't developed a RoboCop that can enforce the laws yet. So we can't automate police service or fire service yet. We don't have automated plow trucks yet. I think they're probably coming before I'm done, but not yet. But and so we do a lot of things to work together with the neighboring partners. So the county's a great partner. One of the things we are doing is with their health and human services, we have an embedded social worker that's going to be in department to address those behavioral health needs. We do have, the county and the city have a joint employee health plan, which has saved a tremendous dollars in terms of healthcare costs. And so it's quite my favorite to use occasionally. We actually partner very well with the county in a wide variety of things. And that's what every community is doing. Every community worth their salt is trying to consolidate, create efficiencies through technology. You know, we are applying the concepts of business in our local governments consistently all the time. And so the suggestion that we should I quickly at that a lot. Because we are doing all these things, and I appreciate the question.
Amy.
So every elected official in Madison comes from a community where this is gonna impact them locally. Everybody knows it's broken. So what's the barrier to getting it fixed in your view?
The legislature.
But like this literally hurts their own town. So what am I missing?
Well, I don't think they wanna, what I hear when I talk to them is like, so you're saying raise taxes, and I'm saying, no, and reallocate how the revenue that the state gets, which is tripled, is doled out. Shared revenue is a big part of it. It's one of the main components that we get money from, municipalities get money from the states, and they don't increase it, they decrease it. And then they also say, you can't raise any more funds unless you have net new construction. That's breaking it down to the simplest area. That's why it's broken. You can't raise more revenue, and we're gonna give you less. Levy limits was actually, I'm gonna say, I didn't have a problem with it. I understand where Ed's coming from, but it did create a lot of efficiencies and save money for municipalities. It made their budgets easier. But if you continue to do it for more than now 20 years, it doesn't work. You can't say your funding is static for 20 years when everything else increases, and we're also then going to give you less money. So that's why we're talking today, because we're actually trying to send out the message that the system is broken. Talk to your legislators. It needs to be changed.
And I will say that for the first, so again, lower property taxes is better, it's good. There lots of states have levy limits, but they are reasonable and they're flexible and they recognize the realities of the situation. But there is a glimmer of hope, at least from the municipal level, in terms of there is some significant conversation going on with the leadership in the legislature and the governor's office about the solution to this. And so the other thing is, and the reason for that is that it's really impacting rural communities in a significant way. And the reason why that's important is because a lot of our legislature is from rural communities, and that helps with that help. But it brings that argument home to those folks that are making this decision. And so there is some hope. We're hopeful that there can be some new legislation that comes forward. It's going to be a long road, but for the first time in a long time, there's some significant discussions happening on both sides of the aisle, both the legislature and the governor's office on this issue.
And one other thing is the cities, towns, villages, counties are all united in telling their legislators this is broken. There isn't, the League of Wisconsin Municipalities, the Counties Association, the Towns Association are all on board to say we've reached the end of where we can continue to function without a change. So that's new. That's in the last year.
You may want to bring up the fact that what's hurt the rural counties a lot and some of the smaller counties is that we all have to be with them. Andy's here, so I can talk about this. The term unfunded mandates. We get 42% of our budget, probably 43 is mandates from the state that basically says you must do this. Mental health is probably the biggest one. And they set it up, a program up with us, all the local governments, at X rate, and then they never raise it. Like none of our costs are like mental health is not becoming worse for us. Well, that's a funding formula fail. So we're asking them to at least fix those types of things, so we can stay up with inflation and other costs. And get that going, hopefully we keep it going from there. But to your question, yeah, the people from rural and smaller parts of the state are really feeling it. They're coming in.
Anyone ask a question? Go ahead, Michael.
So when talking to our legislators, there are long-term legislative changes that can be made, but is this also during this budget process? You know, is this something you request like right now immediately as well?
We're asking for an immediate change for our next budget cycle, but I don't, I'm not gonna go to, well, give us X amount of the surplus. That's not gonna fix the problem. And that would be, my fear of that would be, okay, here we gave you X amount of dollars, and now we'll talk again in 3 or 4 years, type of thing.
We're hoping for systemic change, a complete change of the funding system, and that's what we're going to do. I mean, we'll do something different, but I think there's movement to make this needed.
I'm also gonna add that 10 years ago, 15 years ago, the theme, which had a basis in reality, was Wisconsin's the tax help. There's been a enormous shift where we used to be in I think number 9 or something like that, or 6. We're now in the middle. We're like 29th in the number of states for the total tax burden on citizens in Wisconsin, which is, I don't think that gets enough press, that we actually are in a position where you can't say we're a tax hell, because there's 28 other states that tax it more. No one likes taxes, but that's a total tax burden. That's sales tax, that's income tax, that's property tax. They put them all together, and we're number 29 out of 50 states. So, we pay taxes. We're going to continue to pay taxes. We're also a northern state. I can tell you, in northern states, your roads cost more because they need more maintenance, and you have a lot more transportation expenses. Want to add anything? You can be colored.
No, I think that you're good. I just wanted to say thank you all for coming. Thank you all for supporting the Memorial Fund and the food pantry. It is just a tremendous amount. And, I just got to tell you, the great thing about Waukesha is people coming out, supporting each other, being there for each other, attending events. Had just tremendous. I think that people just wanted to come out of their houses and hang out. I know I have. It's been great. So thank you for supporting our community. Thank you for being there for us, and continue to join us in all these events. Jamboree's coming up. We got all sorts of stuff coming up. So thank you very much.
And I also want to thank you for sticking around and listening to this. It's not the most exciting topic, or probably even one you want to hear. But Kevin and I really felt that we needed to bring this forth and talk about it. So thank you so much. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.